Greetings, fellow discoverers. Totally gnarly to see you today. Automobile. While the root of the word cannot be determined, we suspect the term emanates from the vocabulary of late adolescents, endeavoring to be, automatically, ever in mobility. Hence, automobile, ever on the road, so to speak. Yes. To begin with, all you zondroids, both present and in other spheres today, please refrain from draining your luvitules so others may enjoy the presentation. Thank you. Let us look at the rare specimen we will examine today. Please note, the varieties of these primitive combustive devices were many and differed slightly from model to model. This is typical of the species, Automobilicus awesomus. Not bad, but probably can't make it to warp 3. Let me cover the main categories of interest today: the control system, visibility system, the communication system, climate comfort control. Main instrument panel. Study the instrument panel. At a glance, early 21st century man and woman could determine how his or her various devices were performing. They displayed other information about the vehicle's condition. Many of the devices were labeled only with a picture symbol to illustrate their use. Although many of the true meanings are lost in antiquity, recent research has concluded, for example, that this symbol activated the device to keep snakes off the front windbreaker. Often found in the center was the speedometer, an early precursor of the first warp speed indicators. These were marked in miles and kilometers per hour rather than parsecs per second. These tumbling numbers marked how many miles or kilometers the car had traveled, known as an odometer. The temperature indicator came in the form of a gauge or just an on-off light. Study these preserved images. Early combustible engines, burning gas inside, tended to get hot, requiring a cooling system to carry off excess heat. Early vehicle operators learned to refrain from car operation when this light was on, or when the gauge indicated overheating. If you can believe it, another important part of engine operation was oil. Yes, a light year away from today's aphrodisiac, the oil pressure or oil warning light let them know if there was a problem with oil being pumped to the engine. They wisely did not drive the car if this light was illuminated during engine operation. Aha, a question. That in fact is true, my fellow discoverer. This light and other instrument panel lights did sometimes briefly come on upon starting the car, but normally went out very quickly if okay. Well, I didn't know that you were into trivia, Mr. Nix. But try this for a bit of trivia. This is a gas or fuel gauge. What did this symbol stand for? No, Miss Eki, not evacuate, but E empty. No extra nunnulians for you today. What? Down. For students of that era, there was the ever-present symbol, F, as meaningful today as it was for them. But in the automobile's case, an F was good news, a full tank. But even with a full tank in his vehicle, 20th century man did not always operate with a full tank up here, where his brains were. Back then, they did not possess the memory system's development of today. Some lights, like the parking brake light, reminded drivers that the parking brake was on. This light told them the high beam, or the bright part of the front end headlights, was on. Under what they called the dashboard, to the left of the steering apparatus, was the common location for a curious device called the hood release to get into the engine compartment. For car control, the steering apparatus was the key element. As strange as it may seem, hands controlled the device. They were placed near the 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock positions in most cases, as referenced by the middle period timepiece, a clock. On the same column as the steering wheel, or on the dashboard beside it, was the starting device, the ignition switch. It usually had 5 positions. On, which turned the electrical system on. Start, which activated the combustible engine. Off, which shut off the electrical system and stopped the engine, but did not allow removal of the key. The lock position locked the steering wheel in place and allowed one to remove the key. Accessory, or ACC, let you operate that most important of devices for young operators, the ancient music maker, or other electrical equipment, without starting the engine. Now to the gear shift lever. The word gear, long since lost in our vocabulary, was part of the transmission, the set of enclosed metal wheels that helped turn the vehicle tires. This gave the vehicle either forward or backward movement. Yes, it's amazing. Only 2-dimensional travel. Cars had either automatic transmissions, meaning the gears were shifted automatically for you, or they had manual transmissions, meaning you had to change the gears yourself. For automatic transmissions, P was for park, R for reverse, N for neutral position, and D for the main forward position. Drive 1 and 2, or L, were all lower drive gears that delivered more power to the wheels at slower speeds. For many human units, the excitement of manual transmission shifting was epidemic. Those devices had only 1 reverse, and as many as 5 forward gear positions. A chart was usually printed near the gear shift, showing where each position was to be found. Now, also part of the control system were several foot pedals located on the floor of the driver's side. Yes, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. You, the tenactidel hovering in the back. Foot pedals. Well, you know, foot. Feet. Feet. The one to the far right is the accelerator, or gas pedal. This controlled the speed of the car by regulating the amount of gas and air allowed into the engine. The more one pushed the pedal down, the greater one's speed. Not too difficult. The next pedal over was the brake. It controlled devices mounted on the wheels to slow tire rotation. Now, in contrast to the acceleration pedal, the harder one pressed on the brake pedal, the slower one went. Quite clever for its time, but every set of brakes was different. The pedal to the left of the brake was the clutch pedal. It was found only on manual transmissions. It was pushed in before one could use the stick shift to move to a different gear and speed. Many model cars had a parking brake pedal to the far left of the other pedals. Other models had the parking brake to the right of the driver, as a lever one pulled up to engage. Obviously used for securing the car while parked, it also was used as an emergency brake if the regular brakes failed. By communications, we mean those items in the car that showed other human units where they were and where they were headed next. Things like the turn signals. The lever, attached to the steering column, made turn lights flash. So resourceful, those ancients. Pushing down indicated a left turn and flashed the left turn signal lights at both the front and rear of the vehicle. Pushing the lever up was for a right turn, which flashed the right side lights. A light, or arrow, flashed on the dashboard, and an audible clicking was often heard. These usually turned off automatically as the steering wheel rotated back after the turn. Human units could also hold the lever down lightly, which would flash the lights for as long as they held the lever. Clever. Emergency or hazard lights turned all 4 turn signal lights on and off at the same time. The on-off hazard light switch was usually on the steering column or beside it, and was used to warn other drivers when the car was stopped on or off the road, or was traveling unusually slowly. Human units of this era had a physiological weakness of the brain, a dysfunction called sleep, often attempted while driving. But they had an inkling that controlling their vehicle environment was an important factor in keeping alert and making driving more comfortable and less tiring. Seats of this time period were adjusted so that feet could easily reach and push the foot pedals to the floor. Drivers had to adjust the height to be able to look over the steering wheel. Long before the days when you could get your own control star, air conditioning was a most cherished possession on hot summer drives. These helped to keep drivers alert and comfortable. Car heating systems were set at a moderate setting when needed, again, to prevent the driver from getting drowsy. The headlights formed the backbone of the visibility system. Not only did they assist in seeing the road at night and in bad weather, they also helped drivers see each other. Of course, who wants to go around with one of these on their heads? The headlight switch was usually on the dashboard to the left of the steering column. When switched on, they also controlled the interior dashboard lights on the various gauges and instruments. By rotating the knob, they adjusted the intensity of these interior lights. Very clever. Headlights normally had 2 lamps inside, one for low beam and one for beam, which illuminated objects further in the distance. By pulling the turn indicator arm toward the driver, one could switch between high and low beam intensity. When in high beam, a dashboard light was activated. Some models had the switch as a button on the floor. Windshield wipers and spray nozzles probably had a part in snake bite protection, but research is not clear on this point. Spray nozzles have been shown to shoot a mist of washer solution onto the windshield. Handy for cleaning your teeth. The location for the on switch varied, but was often found on the turn indicator lever. That was the ancient sound of safety and protection. Just a simple and primitive device saved thousands of lives and prevented much grief and suffering. Very good, TX-48. You're correct. Give that android a vial of strawberry silicon. Finally, as a fitting end to our study today, the ritual ended by an arm movement across the body and the sacred, honored sound of... pretty orc stop, eh? Thank you.